Good news if you're a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., as it does appear that Quake will be returning in the upcoming Secret Invasion Disney Plus show for MCU. It's long been heavily rumoured that Quake was going to reappear and that Chloe Bennett was going to be reprising her role and reappearing in the show alongside Samuel L. Jackson in Secret Invasion. The question always was going to be whether that rumour was true. And following a recent tweet by the actress Chloe Bennett, it does appear that this actually could well be the case. After somebody on Twitter made some ridiculous comment about how Chloe Bennett wasn't a good enough actress to star alongside Samuel L. Jackson in a show, it turns out that she then quoted that tweet and said that it wasn't going to age particularly well, suggesting that she will be appearing alongside Samuel L. Jackson in the upcoming Secret Invasion Disney Plus show that's coming in about spring, I think, this year. So it's great news if you're a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because not only does it look like we could be getting Quake back, but if we are going to get Quake back, does it then mean that we get the rest of the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well? It's long been suggested that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't canon anymore, and I did a recent video myself where I sort of talked about the fact that actually it didn't really matter whether it was officially canon or not, because now that we're in a multiverse, everything can be canon really. The question was whether or not it actually existed within the same sort of mainstream Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline. Whether Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started off in the original timeline remains to be seen, but certainly by the time you get to the end of Season 4, it does go off on its own tangent on a separate timeline, as they start travelling through space and time, and they never actually return to the original timeline that they started on, whether that was the main MCU or not. It may well have been that they started out, of course, being canon, as we know, but by the time you got to the 4th season, the split between the TV studio and the cinematic studios, they were starting to have a lot of differences, and certainly it felt like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going off on its own trajectory. The tie-ins with the movies just simply stopped, and the storylines never really converged anymore like they did when the show actually started. But having said all of that, the fact that Quake could actually be in Secret Invasion does obviously suggest that there's going to be a sort of reunion of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. back into the mainstream MCU. The real question though is, how does that work? If Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did go off, as we know, through space and time and ended up in an alternative timeline, how do they get back to the original one? Well, we're not really sure, and it remains to be seen. But what we do have to bear in mind is that Secret Invasion is a story about a Skrull invasion. The Skrulls that we saw in Captain Marvel, who can shapeshift and basically become anybody they want to, including Avengers, other Marvel superheroes, or even just everyday people. So we can't rule out the possibility that whilst Chloe Bennett might be reprising her role, it's actually not as the original Quake, but it could be a Skrull that's just pretending to be her. If the original Quake, Daisy Johnson, has gone off and is somewhere else in space and time, then the one that could be appearing in Secret Invasion could very well turn out to be a Skrull replacement and not the actual original one that she portrayed during the series. Having said that though, it's entirely possible that given everything that we've seen in the multiverse of madness, Scarlet Witch running rampant with the Darkhold, we can't rule out the fact that it's certainly possible that the original cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could make their way somehow from the timeline that they're on back into the main MCU timeline, in the same way that we saw all of the variants of Spider-Man converging back into one place. It's possible that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could come back from wherever they were. We've just never seen it happen and don't know how or why it was caused. It could be that Doctor Strange, doing the spell that he cast to make everybody forget about Spider-Man, and which started to bring in everybody from different timelines, may have somehow impacted on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. timeline as well and brought them back along. So it could be something like that, or more likely, I think it's probably that it's just going to be a Skrull replacement for the original cast. Or it's an entirely different variant altogether that we've never actually seen before. So it's still Daisy Johnson, it's just perhaps a slightly different iteration of her appearing in a different timeline throughout the multiverse. Either way though, it doesn't really matter. However they do it, it is good news if you're an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, because it means that we're starting to tie in that show back into the mainstream MCU and start bringing some relevance back to that series and to its characters. It certainly remains to be seen whether or not we're going to see the likes of Phil Coulson again, who, as we know, was part of the original cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that would have gone off and is now somewhere lost in space and time in a different timeline to the one that we're used to. So we're probably not going to get Phil Coulson coming back or any of the other cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., at least not at the moment. It's certainly, there's no rumours, there's no suggestions that anybody else is going to be reappearing. It's just Chloe Bennett that's rumoured to be appearing in Secret Invasion. There's no talk about anybody else, but it's not impossible. If we're going to get Quake back or Daisy Johnson, then why not get all the others back as well, or whichever ones are still alive. We can't rule out the possibility. Phil Coulson, if memory serves, did actually pass away, I think, in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, and the character of Phil Coulson that was actually left when the series finished was actually like an android replacement of the character, I believe. So the actual original one that we saw allegedly die in Avengers Assemble, that was then brought back to life in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, that character's definitely passed. So whether or not we see Phil Coulson again or an iteration of him, it'll probably be a variant or a robot or just something that basically isn't the original character. The only thing that we do know for certain is that Chloe Bennett has said that the tweets suggesting that she wasn't going to be good enough to appear alongside Samuel L. Jackson are going to age terribly. So it does hint that she's going to be in this show alongside him in Secret Invasion, presumably to reprise the role of Quake in some variation or another. So I still think it's good news if you are a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It'll be nice to actually bring back some characters from that and reprising their roles into the mainstream MCU and getting some relevance again. But what do you think? Please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Do you want to see the original cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming back and becoming officially canon once again? Or like me, do you think it doesn't matter because in a multiverse, everything is canon regardless of what timeline you're on? So please leave a comment, give the video a like, share it if you like it, and subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you guys real soon.